It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm here to talk about cancer. I'm not a physician. I'm not a biologist. I'm a technologist. But I'm learning about cancer. And over the past course of 10 years, I experienced the life of a cancer patient through my family members and close friends. My mother got cancer, my father got cancer, and one of my closest friends got cancer. My parents were diagnosed quite early on, but the closest friend that I had, unfortunately, was diagnosed quite a late stage, and he had to go through a very painful process before he passes away. And what struck me is that when you were told that a person has cancer close to you, no matter how strong you are, you're completely shocked. And the first thing you hear is that we have a bad news. Unfortunately, this person has cancer, and come and see us in 2 weeks to talk to the oncologist. At that moment, your back is completely against the wall, and you don't know what to do. You don't know who to talk to. Even as a smart person, you don't understand the concept of the disease. So the first thing you do is you go to what I call Dr. Internet, and you start Googling and searching and trying to understand what is it. And then you get overloaded with the amount of information. The information that you're not sure whether they're certified or not. The information that goes over your head, because the medical terms that is being used is completely non-comprehensive, or the scary information, ugly pictures, scary pictures, grieving messages, how people recovered after the passing of the person. So, and it amazes me that there is no specific source of information that provides consumer-friendly content about the cancer. When you go to the physician, when you go to oncologist, you pretty much put your life in the hand of oncologist. And you don't know, you trust them. But the reality is that depending of their experience, depending of how many cases they dealt with, they may or may not know about alternative care that could be available to you, about alternative clinical cares that could be available to you. A lot of time, the time that you spend with oncologists is about, the first time is about 20 minutes. The second time, after another 3 weeks, is about another 20 minutes. And the process is quite striking, because unless you don't ask the question, you don't get provided with the information. And again, at least it's been in my case and a lot of people that I have spoken to. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of physicians actually don't like Dr. Internet, because you go with the information to physician and you ask for, can you run this test? Because I read it on Internet that this test is actually good for me. And they say, oh, okay, we write the test. And that information is still, again, is not reliable. So what I'm doing in my new position is that I thought, why not create a platform where you can provide an application that you can provide it to cancer patients that connect them with reliable source of information about the clinical trials that are available on a daily basis and the results get produced. Provide them with a series of questions about their cancer that they can take it and go to the oncologist and ask the oncologist to walk them through the questionnaires. That when they input the question, it goes back to the data source and brings relevant information. Put them in touch with other cancer patients and put their family in touch with other family members of other cancer patients. So to me, it's time about connect, communicate, and share. But before we go to the details of that app, there are certain statistics that was quite striking to me. When I'm looking at the global number of cancer patients and death, right? There are 14 million new cancer patients every year globally, worldwide. And there is 8.2 million cancer deaths per year. In 2030, we're going to have 22 million cancer patients every year. And with the way that we're moving up, the death is going to grow to 13 million per year. Now, when you look at global issue, the developing countries like Africa, Asia, are having 70% of the worldwide death of cancer. So while our global health is constantly talking about infectious diseases and the dangers of infectious diseases of like Ebola or malaria and those things in developing countries, it's cancer that is causing the largest number of deaths globally. Now let's look at US. If you look at the last 30 years and the number of deaths, for instance, let's compare it with heart disease. We see that the heart disease, the death from heart disease from the last 30 years have decreased tremendously. But the dotted line shows in men and women, but the dotted line shows that the last 30 years, the death from cancer has actually remained pretty much the same. And with the statistics that we go, it's now proven that basically within our lifetime, 1 out of every 2 men will get cancer, and 1 out of every 3 women will get cancer. That's a staggering data, especially if you combine it with the death rate that we're going to experience. Let's compare that with HIV. Again, over the last 30 years, since the HIV appeared since 1975 to 2006 only. So 1.6 million new cases in 2015 compared to 50,000 new cases of AIDS in 2015. 1,600 people die from cancer every day versus 38 people die from AIDS. Again, between 1975 to 2006, we actually reduced the death rate of AIDS tremendously, 94% versus cancer. So cancer is a death sentence. There are only 3,000 inmates in death rate, but there is 1,600 death rates per day from cancer. There is only 80 deaths per 10,000 diabetic patients versus 200 deaths per 10,000 cancer patients. The cost of cancer treatment in US, again, between outpatient cost versus inpatient versus prescription cost. The prescription is mainly smaller than the cost of care that we provide to the patients. $207 billion is inpatient stay. And that $207 million is mainly the last 3 weeks of patient being in hospice, waiting for his or her death. And it's painful because the patient is constantly going through, I'm dying. Why don't you kill me sooner? Why don't you let me take my life? I witnessed that. You know, that they say, just get me the dosage, I'll do it myself, and let me get over with it, and put myself out of agony, and put my family and friends out of agony. Now, $2.28 billion cost of medicine, which mainly is about the chemotherapy, right? Now, let's look at the result of chemotherapy. This is on the A section. This is a 30-year-old man who was diagnosed with melanoma. And they did the chemotherapy, and the chemo obviously showed a fantastic result. It's gone. The melanoma is gone. But then after 9 weeks, the melanoma came back even in a worse case than the previous one. So it took 9 years to discover the drug of chemotherapy. It took 9 weeks to get the recurrence of cancer. And that's part of the $22 billion cost of drug in US. So why is chemo doesn't work? Why is it that we haven't been able to really achieve much in terms of getting progress in curing cancer? I'm learning, right? I think what happened is that over the last decades, we looked at cancer in a wrong way. We thought that cancer is a single clonal disease. We thought cancer is a homogeneous network. We thought it's one type of network. The tumor has only one shape and is one type of infectious disease. But now we know that cancer is a multi-clonal disease. It's a heterogeneous. Tumor is heterogeneous. The breast cancer that I would get, if I'm one of the two, it's a heterogeneous tumor that is formed from gene mutation. And within that tumor, I may have heterogeneous subtumors. Some of them are asleep, some of them are active. And it's heterogeneous within my body, and it's unique to my body, and it's different from other tumors that get created alongside of that breast cancer. So when it spreads out, the other tumor that gets created are again of different types, and they are heterogeneous as well. So it's unique to me, it's unique to other tumor that gets created, and it's unique between me and the other woman that gets breast cancer, which makes cancer in its own right, each tumor, a rare disease. It's a rare disease. And when we nuke it all, when we go and basically put a chemo in the person's body, a lot of time we may be awaking other subtumors that actually were asleep. And what we're doing, the same way that they now say do not take pills because the superbug and our body is not resistant to cold medicine and things like that, we actually may be creating a resistance to the drug. Therefore, a lot of time the recurrence is worse than the first tumor that was created. And they don't respond to the same drug anymore. And what we're also doing, we're actually killing the good cell and the bad cell. We're actually reducing the immune system of the body to fight with the cancer. So what can be done? We can use technology to interrogate cancer. We need to interrogate cancer at genomic level, protonomic level, and immunological and metabolic level. We need to identify tumor ID. We need to understand which gene is actually causing the protein malfunctioning. We need to also empower patients to go to oncologists more informed. We need to empower patients to be part of that disease management and that therapy decision-making. And we need to deliver a personalized data delivery, molecular-based treatment to patients. So we need to do whole genome sequencing from the entire 3 billion pair of DNA within the genome. We need to get to the 20,000 genes that are actually creating the protein that becomes the cancer. And then within that protein, there are thousands of mutations that cause cancer. We need to understand which one of these are programmable that we can actually interact with. And then we need to run a medicine that actually targets that specific genome. And when we apply the drug, the mutation in real time changes. So we need to go back and run this analysis again dynamically and in real time. The amount of data that one person's genome takes in terms of processing is about terabytes of data. So think about the computing power. Think about the amount of data analytics that you need to run there. And think about the artificial intelligence behind the scene that need to understand the entire communication between all these genomes. And think about that process runs over and over in dynamic fashion and in real time. One of the things that we're doing in NantWorks as part of the Nant Health family and NantOmics, we now have created our own lab that we can run this data analytics in 47 seconds so that we can provide the information to caregivers that they can actually provide that type of scientific, evidence-based approach caregiving to the patients. And the process is about getting a very, very, very thin slice of tissue, basically monitoring that tissue, converting that tissue to the liquid specimen, and now run the analytics through that liquid specimen and analyzing it for its 3 billion genomes, which is about 6 feet in length, and again, is 3 billion pair of data. So it's about time that we now go through an evidence-based treatment. And this is one of the things that Nant Health and NantOmics are actually doing end-to-end, from taking the biopsy to pathway and analyzing the genome and protonomics, and then suggesting the best drug for the type of cancer to the individual need. We also have the largest database of clinical trials that is now available to oncologists, that they can basically look into the latest clinical trial around the world based on the type of cancer that the individual has. And that system is already integrated with a lot of insurance companies, payers, that they can get the approval of the insurance company for the patient very quickly. Now, one of the things that I wanted to touch on is this concept of natural killer cell. So now we have identified that the best drug for treating cancer is actually our own antibody. So that's the concept of killer cell. We all have killer cell inside our body floating. That's what's fighting bacteria. That's what's fighting viruses. But what happens is that when a cancer gets created, it actually manages to put the killer cell into sleep and into idle mode. And that's when it gets time to basically grow inside the body. By going from genome to DNA, by going from DNA to RNA to protein level, we can actually detect and recognize which protein is the one that is causing cancer. And then we can go and find the antibody available to fight that cancer, which is the largest database of antibody that we have, that can cure that cancer. And then we can inject that antibody into the killer cell. So my own antibody into the killer cell, and inject that killer cell into the body. And then the killer cell will find the cancer cell, and it attaches to the cancer cell, and it kills the cancer cell only without tapping into, without killing the good cells, without killing the immune system. So it becomes a very targeted therapy. To attack it becomes a missile. It's basically, you basically create a missile inside the body, targeted missile that goes and kill the tumor. I wanted to show you a couple of videos. So on the left side, the red cell is actually the cancer cell. And this is actually inside. These are actually the cancer tissue. And that gray individuals that running around is actually the killer cell. That it goes around and around of the good cell, and it basically attacks the cancer cell and only kills the cancer cell. This is what we call the dance of proteins. And on this one, these are all the cancer cells, and this is actually the killer cell going, targeting all the cancer cells and killing them one by one. And that's a breakthrough that we want to see, that everybody, all the patients, are receiving. Because at the end of the day, there is no cost to human life. There is nothing that there is nothing that can justify, this process is too costly, or this process is, costs too much for us. When you talk about my life, it's my life. And I have seen, unfortunately, some oncologists talking about it's more information for us, it's more forms for us to fill, it's more headache for us, and that's why the patient empowerment need to be part of picture. That's why the patient need to have the information available to them, be part of decision making, and ensure that they receive the therapy that is available to them. When you look at, again, patient journey from emotional response, from pre-diagnostic to recovery, it's quite a roller coaster drive, A lot of time people have pain, and they go to the family physician, and they come back with a whole bunch of different diagnostics that they made, and they go through the pain process for a year, and all by a sudden a test result comes back after a year that, oops, it was cancer, that we missed it, right? The funny thing is that when you run a survey under the diagnosis side, some people say, at least I got a momentary relief that the source of pain was cancer and nothing else or nothing mysterious. So they get that short relief. During the treatment, they're nervous, they're emotional, they're scared. So during the treatment, they're nervous, they're emotional, or they're hopeful. And during the recovery, skeptical, grateful, hopeful, or they just done. That's the last 2 to 3 weeks of a patient basically going through the pain management and waiting for its time to come. Again, I've been through it, and I hope nobody goes through it. So the other thing is about boosting immune system and self-care. We now know that toxic has direct correlation with cancer. So the food that we eat, the exercise that we make are actually quite important. One of the other applications that we're working on is what we call Calio in the center, where it has the very simple voice interface and barcode reader that you can pretty much talk to it. I encourage you guys to download it. We're running a beta and a little bit of a self-promotion. We're running a beta, and we're going to enhance this interface on the next version. But it's basically a matter of, it's not about dieting or losing weight necessarily or counting calories, but it's about being able to manage a healthy and balanced lifestyle by picking and choosing the right food for yourself and for your family. There are basically ideas around massage therapy and yoga and meditation being helpful to patients during the time that they go through cancer. And post-diagnostic need for information, again, patients' desire for information and news is quite important. Patients become part of decision-making is quite important. And the most important thing, again, is the content, the information that are friendly to consumer, to the patient, that they can understand the type of cancer that they have, the variation of the cancer that they have. Being able, I mean, you go to the oncologist, you come back home. That's when you start thinking and asking questions. Shoot, I should have asked my doctor this. I should have asked my doctor that. And depending on where you live, and yesterday we were talking about Bitcoin and closed network of banking system. And I made a joke and I say, if you guys think banking system is closed network, let's take a look at our healthcare system. The fact that doctors sometimes they can't share information with each other. The fact that doctors sometimes they can't even give you your own health record. You can't even have, I always say I can check into any bank and I can pull out my information. I can wire transfer money from one source to another source. Why can't I wire transfer my health information from one doctor to another doctor? Why can't I have just pick up my phone, log in, and my information is there? Because today my information is locked to the provider. And when I move, I go through hassle to get that information. When I travel outside country and I'm diagnosed with a disease or anything, the healthcare that I'm going to, the emergency response team that I go to doesn't have access to my healthcare. Why can't I just open my app and say, here it is? Why can't I click and say, I authorize you and I'm going to email it to you? Oh, no, we can't do that. And it's crazy. It's something that I'm very personally passionate about, to empower patients to own their own healthcare, health information. I'm the one who should own my health information, not the insurance company. I'm the one who have to decide who sees my health information, not the insurance company. The doctor is the one who have to sign the release in order for me to give them information, not vice versa. So that's definitely another activities that I have under my management to democratize consumer health information and give them the ability. Actually, thank you. Thank you. And give them the ability to own their own information. On the Cancer Connect application, it's an application that we're releasing in 2 months, and people can just download it. People can log in their information, whether it's their own information or a family member who has cancer, and they get access to a personalized content around their own cancer or the type of cancer that they have. They get question list of which they can take to the oncologist to ask the question and basically input their answer to that application and submit it back to the platform in order to receive more information about what are the alternative cares, what are the other clinical trials that have done, other clinicians have done that they had seen response, so that you can ask the oncologist for that type of clinical trial or for that type of treatment. The second version that we're going to release in 4 months is going to have connection, like a social networking of cancer patients that actually connects the cancer patient to other cancer patients. I was talking to another person last night, and he said, oh yeah, my son has a rare disease, and the first place I went to Dr. Internet. And I started searching for that rare disease. And in 10 minutes, and this person is an executive in a very high-tech company, super smart, double PhD. And he said, in 10 minutes, I couldn't read anymore. I couldn't understand any of the information. And he says, all by a sudden, I came across these 2 brothers that have that rare disease. And they started creating their own blog. And they started basically providing video of their own life about the rare disease, which he said that I thought, oh my God, now I understand what this disease is and why my son acting the way it acts. So it's about patient to patient. And it's about that continuity and availability of information, so that after the 10 minutes time that I get with my oncologist, I can go back and really get deep into what I need to do or what other people's actually experience so that I can make a better decision, a more informed decision. And we're going to focus I'm going to spend a lot of time around creating that consumer-friendly content about cancer so that people can understand it, And eventually, we want the cancer patient to be able to actually choose their kind of clinical trial that goes and get back connected to the clinic that can actually offer that service to them. And after the patient is the life of people around them, right? Because again, I'm a lucky candidate of cancer because of the cancer that I had in my family. So now I need to take care of myself. I need to know over time what is available to me or what is not. I need to know what kind of sign I need to watch for, right? So after the cancer patient, it's now about the family that probably they may have or they may get the same cancer or of different type. So again, it's about connecting patient to content, patient to other patients, patients to other possible treatments available to them, and then family of the patients to other family members. Looking to the future, a strategy to fight cancer for us is first enabling personalized treatment, leveraging genomics and protonomics. On our Nant Health and NantMobile company, we are pushing bottom-up from clinics to hospitals to oncologists to provider. On my side, I'm focused on patient downward. So consumerization of healthcare is my passion. Patient empowerment, enhancing patient immune system. Improving the immune system is very important, and hopefully it could be the preventional method of fighting cancer. Again, if we can kind of improve our immune system. And then the next step is utilizing data analytics, artificial intelligence, to identify the trends, to correlate. From that staggering $1 billion cost of cancer treatment today, we really don't have any data that what worked, what didn't. Patient receives treatment. We go through a staggering cost of healthcare for cancer, and we don't know what worked, what didn't. Pretty much is like flipping a coin. Wow. And that's one thing that as IT, as technologists, we can do. We can now utilize data analytics. We can now utilize artificial intelligence. We can look across these different data sources, patient's life, family life, their eating habit, their diet, the type of treatment they got, the response they got to that treatment. And that becomes different source of data that we collect, we process. We come to a decision, we come to a result, we put that back into the system. And constantly, in real time and in a dynamic way, we process that information in order to hopefully reduce the number of deaths from cancer. So optimizing the path to prevention and having multidisciplinary approach, bringing technologies and expertise together, to work together. Technologists may not accept oncologists, oncologists may not accept technologists. But it's human life. We need to put that ego aside and work together and ensure that we can provide the care that our members, we need in order to live a better life. That's about it.